Hi guys, Asmo here, and in this video I'm gonna explain how I crafted my gear for the Toxic Rain Trickster. We're gonna basically go over every single piece of gear, and I'm gonna give you some suggestions for crafting it and how I went about it. So the first piece of gear is gonna be the bow. Initially you're gonna start with like a +1 or +2 bow or a quill rain, whatever you have during leveling, but afterwards you're gonna wanna get a +3 bow. So the way you wanna craft this is with essences. So there is an essence here. Let me upgrade it actually. So we've got this essence, which is Shrieking Essence of Dread, that you can see has for the bows +2 to level of socketed bow gems. So that basically forces this modifier. So what you want to do is you want to craft +2 to level of socketed bow gems, and you want to make sure that you have at least one empty prefix, and then ideally you want to roll something like attack speed with it, or you want to roll something like chaos damage over time multiplier, like damage over time multiplier. If you roll something like that, that's amazing. And the next step is gonna be crafting for one divine attack. So on the suffix you want to craft cannot roll attack modifiers. If you craft cannot roll attack modifiers, I can show you here in the craft of exile. If you remove the attack modifiers, or if you look at you look very closely, if I look at attack modifiers, it only closes this thing, right? This is the only modifier on a prefix that is not an attack modifier on these bows. So since this is not an attack modifier, it's going to be the only thing that you can roll, which means you can simply exalt it. If the only thing that you have free is a prefix, right? So you have 3 suffixes. If you exalt it, it's going to be guaranteed +1. So you're going to have a bow that has now +2. It has attack speed or whatever you rolled, and then cannot craft attack modifiers or cannot roll attack modifiers. You're gonna exalt this +1, and now you have a +3 bow with attack speed or chaos damage over time multiplier, or without anything if you wanted to just use one essence and go cheap. And then you're gonna simply craft from the bench chaos damage over time multiplier, and you have the bow. And for the bow, you can use the short bow level 50. As you can see, item level 50 short bow, because level 50 is all you need for the +1. For the +1, all you need is level 50. If you wanted to get this not from an essence, the +2, you would need item level 64 bow at least, but this requires only level 50. So you can get this from the porcupine cards, and you can very cheaply get this bow at the league start, craft it like that, and that's gonna carry you through. You can get like 5 million DPS out of this bow very easily. Then the next is gonna be the upgraded version of this bow. Very similar craft, but the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be rolling for the suffix. So either the T1 attack speed, you can also do this with an essence. As you can see here, this one is rolled with an essence for the attack speed. You also can go for the damage over time, right? If you want to get the damage over time multiplier, you can look at Craft of Exile here. We've got where is it, both fire additional arrows, damage over time multiplier. So you can go for this one, like 24 to 26 damage over time multiplier. You can simply roll this with alterations. And then what you're going to want to do is lock your suffixes, and you're going to want to have again cannot roll attack modifiers, and you're going to do 2 things. You're going to exalt it, and you're gonna hunter exalt it, because the bow initially is not supposed to be influenced, right? So if you look at influences, and I look at hunter influence, and we look at prefixes, and again I'm gonna click on attack here to show you, the only thing that disappeared is the increased chaos damage over time. So every single other modifier is 2 attacks. So you want to make sure that you have your suffixes filled. For example, you can do the can have up to 3 crafted modifiers, or you can have it filled with some other craft. So can have up to 3 crafted modifiers. Then you're gonna have cannot roll attack modifiers, right? And then you are going to exalt for the +1, and then hunter exalt for the increased chaos damage over time. The chaos damage over time is going to be any of the rolls that varies here between T1 and T4. If you get lucky, you get the 90. If you get unlucky, you get the 60. And then what you do after that is simply can have up to 3 crafted modifiers, +2 to level of socketed support gems, and then chaos damage over time multiplier, which is gonna give you this bow. You can also enchant it for either AoE or attack speed, whatever you need, and that's the bow craft. Now let's go to the chest. So the chest is a pretty important item for this character, and one of the items that you want to craft first. So chest and the boots. At first you can craft anything and just put on the bench chance to avoid elemental ailments, and also chance to avoid elemental ailments on the boots, and you can craft it even with the lesser essence. I show an example of this in the POB for the character. If you look at the low budget here, the items, you can see that boots have 28% chance to avoid elemental resistances and 17. These are from the essence that is not the deafening one, but the one before, because these essences are very expensive. But you can even use the shrieking essence of loathing, and that on the boots will give you up to 30% increased chance to avoid elemental ailments. So you want to use this on the boots so that you can craft them very early with the ailment avoidance and take care of that as soon as you get into maps. But afterwards you can make slightly better versions of this. So here's how I go about crafting this. First of all, don't worry too much about the specific suffixes. Just know that you want to go for resistances of as high tier as possible. And you want at least one item to have spell suppression, for example, one item to have some regen, and if you can roll physical damage reduction, that would be also amazing. That's why I use the armor evasion base, because even though it has lower chance for spell suppression, it can also roll additional physical damage reduction, which would be an amazing suffix to have on this character. However, I happened to roll the life regeneration, and that was still fine. I was still flexible with the pieces of gear. You can be very, very flexible with how you craft, and it's going to save you a lot of currency. So you get a base first. You get this base of item level at least 86, because that's what you need for T1 spell suppression. So you either get evasion or evasion ES or evasion armor base. It needs to have some kind of evasion. The more evasion, the better. Sadist garb is typically what people craft. That's going to give you the most energy shield and evasion. But we cannot really spend our prefixes on evasion too much, so it doesn't really matter that much. I went with the Triumphant Lamellar because it has the most evasion, and it's also an armor based for the possibility of PDR. I went with essences. You want to use the cheapest resistance essence, the highest tier, so the deafening, but whatever is the cheapest, lightning, fire, or you can even use chaos res essences or cold resistance essences, whatever essence you want to use. First thing that you're going to be rolling for are the suffixes. So you want to roll until you get 2 other good suffixes. You could also start with a fractured base. That is totally fine. You could start with a fracture base, so I could have, for example, T1 lightning res and roll the fire res, and I only need to roll 1 good suffix. And let's say I rolled this region and I want this region. So now that I have suffixes, I need to use Eldritch currencies to take care of prefixes. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the Searing Exarch is the dominant one. So you get any Searing Exarch, like any lesser Eldritch Ember, and then these currencies are gonna work only on the Searing Exarch. A good trick to figure out which one works on prefixes and suffixes is to just look at these currencies, and prefixes are first, so that's red, that's Searing Exarch, and then suffixes are the second one, the below one, right? So it's on the right side, it's the blue, that's the Ether. So what you want to do is ideally craft life on it, whatever tier you're happy with, and then craft suffixes cannot be changed. And then you go to Betrayal, to Ashling, and you get a 50-50 chance with the Ashling craft to either hit the life or hit the suffixes cannot be changed. If you hit the life, you could try doing the same thing again, because you're already going to have that craft. So you can, for example, try to annul for 50-50. You remove the veiled modifier. You have the you still have the craft. Or if it hits the craft, the suffix is going to be changed, then you're set. You have the life, you have the veiled modifier, you have all of your suffixes, and you block armor and evasion on this base. So whatever base you're using, check what is the thing that you want to block that takes up most modifiers. So I blocked armor and evasion for this. And then I unveiled the chance to avoid elemental ailments, chance to avoid being stunned. This is very important because you cannot craft it if you also want the physical damage from hits taken as fire and taken as lightning. So you want to unveil the chance to avoid elemental ailments, and then you simply want to craft the physical damage from hits taken as fire and as lightning damage. And that's the chest ready in terms of the affixes. And then for the implicits, you use Searing Exarch to get the endurance charge. So gain endurance charge every 13 seconds. As you can see, They last longer than that. They last 30 seconds for me. So I have perma endurance charges here. And then a grace effect, or you can also use any other aura effect, any other good modifier, but grace effect is really good on this. And that's basically the chest complete. Then we can move to the boots, which I already mentioned. So for boots, ideally you want to get boots that are, for example, with a suffix already fractured. So as you can see here, T1 resistance fractured suffix, and it doesn't have to be the highest base. So the slink boots would be much more expensive. I bought this for probably for like 5 chaos. Most of my like fractured bases that you're gonna see here, I bought for like 5 to 20 chaos. You just snipe them. If there's slightly lower base, but it's much cheaper, just get the slightly lower base that is much cheaper. You're gonna save a lot of currency. So you wanna get something fractured on it. Can be any of the resistances. So cold, lightning, fire, chaos. Can be regen, can be spell suppression, whatever you need fractured is fine. And then you spam the essences. As I showed before, these essences are the essences of loathing. So for this craft, for the medium budget, I was using the deafening essence of loathing until I hit a good modifier. And I happened to hit the spell suppression. Great, I move on with the prefixes now. So for the prefixes, we're doing something similar. We're gonna go for the ashling. So we wanna make sure that we lock our suffixes. And you can either craft something before, or you can also use the veiled chaos orb. But with the veiled chaos orb, there is always a risk of filling all of the modifiers, and then you're not going to be able to craft anything. So you want to make sure that you do the ashling if you want to be sure to also like craft life or something like that on it. Sometimes you might already hit life or movement speed with the essence, so that's cool. But if you didn't, then you basically either veiled chaos orb or ashling with suffixes cannot be changed. And then block whatever is most common for whatever base you're using. Usually it's going to be mana. And then you unveil one of the 3 movement speed modifiers. So you can get movement speed with onslaught, movement speed with chill resist, or movement speed with increased movement speed. This is the one I got, and then we simply craft 70 life on it, and that's our affixes. For the implicits, you want to use the Eater of Worlds for chance to avoid elemental ailments, and then we want to use Searing Exarch for increased movement speed. On another character, you would want action speed instead of movement speed, but for Trickster, if you don't get higher than 8%, it's actually not going to do anything. So the 5% increased action speed actually does nothing for me on these boots. That's why we have movement speed instead. And for enchant, you want movement speed, you can get mana, you can get chance to avoid being stunned, things like that. It doesn't really matter too much. Okay, let's move on to the helmet, which is another big important piece. For the helmet, you want to get as much energy shield as possible because we are using this escape artist notable. So what you want to do is get something like a hubris circlet enchanted with the Toxic Rain enchant for +1 arrow or more damage, or you can get any of the aura reservation enchants. Either of those is fine. You could also get enchant for Withering Step if you want. So whatever enchant you get is fine, but I personally want to use this one for more clear, more coverage. Then we've got the Hubris Circlet, which is the base that we're going to be using, and we're going to be doing something similar. Usually with an enchanted helmet, you're not going to find anything fractured, so you're going to have to do some Eldritch crafting. What you use is the same essences, so that's why these essences are so expensive, because not only they give you the chance to avoid elemental ailments, they also give you increased mana reservation efficiency of skills on other pieces of armor, as the helmet. So you spam this essence until you get 2 good suffixes. So this should be one of your flexible items, because here I got the regen, I got T1 regen, and I got T1 int. I needed some int, so I actually like recrafted one of my rings to instead include the resistance. And I got more resistances because of that, but you can hit res, you can hit basically regen, res or int. Those are like the only things you can hit basically on this base. You could use another base with evasion, like evasion, energy shield, and maybe hit suppression as well. So you're looking again for 3 good suffixes. Once you have all of your suffixes sorted, you finish the essence craft, then you're gonna do Eldritch craft. So you're gonna go again, make sure that the Searing Exarch is the dominant one, and then you're gonna craft the prefixes. The prefixes that you want is something that's going to give you more energy shield and something that's going to give you more life. So the ideal one is increased energy shield and maximum life. The way you craft it is you go to the bench, you pick up all of your currencies, right? You go to the bench, you get the item, you make sure it has no prefixes, you craft mana, you exalt it. If it's bad, you remove the craft and then you annul. so that you don't waste annuls on removing crafts that you can just remove from the bench. And then you put mana on again, then you exalt it. If it's something decent, you want to try for the next mod, you exalt it again. If it's bad, you either remove the modifier and annul twice, or you remove the modifier and hope that it's hope that the annul hits the thing that you got most recently that wasn't good, and you try again. Or you simply, without removing the modifier even, you just Eldritch Chaos. You can also Eldritch Chaos once you have 3 modifiers, and that can reroll them. It's a bit quicker to craft that way, although a little bit more expensive. And you do this until you're happy with your prefixes. What you want to make sure that you craft at the end is the physical damage from hit taken as fire damage. And after that, we go for the implicits. So for the implicits, the most important one is the reduced mana cost of skills. If you get a higher level of Enlighten, you could also skip the increased mana reservation of efficiency of skills. You could get the Enlighten 4 in here, and that will probably be good enough so that you can skip that modifier. Instead of that modifier, you can get extra like 6% or 7 or 8% physical damage taken as elemental. That's going to make you even tankier. So that's the helmet. All right, let's move on to the amulet. The amulet, this amulet is a +1 amulet. At this point, you can probably buy something like this pretty cheap, although not with all of these resistances and the increased chaos damage, but just like a +1 chaos amulet. But if you want to craft something like this, very simply, I got the base again for like 5 chaos. I made sure it's item level 84. I made sure it has good suffix on it that is already fractured. So I got the 18 to all elemental resistances, which gives me actually what is like 54 elemental res. So that's better than any of the elemental resistance rolls. So that's like the most res that I can get. And then I crafted it with an essence for increased chaos damage. That is the same essence that gives you chaos res. I think it's the envy one. Yep. So I crafted it with the envy essence until I got a decent suffix. So all I needed to do is hit 1 suffix, and the suffix I got is the chaos res. After that, what you can do is you can lock your prefixes and you can do reforge chaos, right? If you go to harvest and you do the reforge chaos, you can see chaos, reforge an item with random modifier, including chaos modifiers. On this amulet, the only modifier that can roll is the +1 to level of all chaos skill gems. There is no flat chaos to attacks or anything like that. Only +1 to level of all chaos skill gems. So it's guaranteed +1. And then we had 2 empty modifiers. I crafted the mana, and then I exalted, slammed the mana. The mana, I would much rather have it live, so I could try to recraft that, right? But I just went with this because I didn't really need the extra life. But if I wanted to recraft this, I would again lock the suffixes, reforge chaos, and try again with an exalt until I get life on it. So that's how I would craft this. And we allocate crystal skin for the remainder of the ailment immunities. So now let's move on to the rings. Both of the rings are crafted in the exact same way. You get amethyst ring with a good suffix fracture. So for example, all resistances or T1 elemental res. Don't get the one with the attributes, because the ones with attributes are going to be way more expensive because of omniscience. People craft rings for omniscience with that, but the resistances way cheaper. So you can get amethyst ring at least item level 84 with elemental resistances fractured or chaos resistance fracture, whatever you need. And then you simply slap the same chaos essence that you used on this. So the envy essence, again, we're going to be using it. And then we're looking for 1 extra good suffix. Here I got T3 lightning res. Here I got, T1 cold res. And then we're going to do prefixes cannot be, suffixes cannot be changed on the prefix. We're going to craft on the prefix, suffixes cannot be changed. Veiled Chaos Orb, and then we block mana, we unveil life, so we get the life and mana regen per second. Then we craft, for example, mana again, or the non-channeling skills have -2 mana cost, and then you can exalt, slam the last prefix, and probably you're gonna get mana or damage to attacks or something useless like that. So that's basically how we crafted the rings. For the belts, belt is very simple. You can slam the belts with essences for resistances. You can slam the belts with essences for attributes. Honestly, Stygian Vice is, you can just buy a bunch of Stygian Vices that are item level 84, you can just craft them with essences, and the ones that you don't want, you're gonna sell. You're gonna sell them very, very easily, or you can just buy it from trade. This is not like a specific item that there is a specific crafter, because the belt is basically gonna be the last piece that you're getting. It's gonna fill in the things that you're missing from other parts of your gear. And then the quiver. For the quiver, getting something like this, the damage over time multiplier with attack skills, this would be something that you could roll on and try to go for double dot multi. But basically, you can craft an early one with increased damage with bows. Where is this one? Quiver, increased damage with bow skills, so you can get up to 50% increased damage with bow skills. That works as well for Toxic Rain. And then you're looking just for to hit something like life or attack speed. Honestly, quivers are something that I would not recommend crafting a lot. I would not recommend crafting quivers if you just want to craft one quiver for yourself once. If you want to do that, I would rather buy it. It's going to be cheaper, or craft a lot of quivers. Quiver crafting can be very profitable, and you can craft yourself a very nice quiver while also selling the byproducts of it and making currency. But if you just want to craft one specific quiver, it's not going to be very easy. So I actually recommend buying that or crafting a bunch of them and just keeping the thing that you want. So you can craft it with that essence. What else can you craft it with? Quiver, this does not count. You can craft it with you can look for other essences as well, but ideally you would probably craft it with also fossils. I definitely recommend buying quiver. Quivers are one of the more annoying things to craft, so either craft a lot of them with essences. You can use the chaos and life, for example, and you're gonna be able to hit life and chaos multipliers pretty often. You're gonna hit some poison byproducts, and you're gonna sell them to people who are playing poison bow builds, and that's probably gonna be the best way to go. The base that you want is definitely the broadhead arrow quiver though, because the attack speed is very, very useful. And that's basically it. I think I went over all of the gear, and that's basically it. So out of this gear, I crafted all of the gear except for the belt and the quiver. Just like I don't recommend you really craft them unless you want to craft a bunch of them. I recommend crafting everything else though, because it's gonna be much easier. Oh, gloves, another item that I didn't cover. Okay, so lastly, let's talk about the gloves. For the gloves, what you want to do is craft. You want to get apothecary gloves. Item level 84, hunter influenced. So apothecary gloves, item level 84, hunter influence without any modifiers. Right now, go for like 50 chaos. So that's what you want to get, and you want to basically spam aberrant fossils on them until you get chaos damage over time multiplier tier 1. When you get that and no other hunter modifiers, then you want to buy any gloves that are going to be warlord influenced and are going to have the increased damage over time warlord modifier and no other warlord modifiers. That's 10 chaos. And then you get awakener orb. You click on the donor gloves, which are the 10C gloves with the whatever shitty base with the warlord modifier, and then you're gonna slap that onto your hunter gloves, and then they're gonna join, and you're gonna get some random stuff together. Ideally, what you want is if you hit life, that would be ideal, right? If you hit like life and 1 res or something, that would be great, because then you can craft, for example, increased AoE, and that's gonna make it so that you can easily hit 39% increased AoE for the maximum overlaps. And that's it. That's all of the gear. If you have any questions for crafting the items, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.